Hello chess lovers and welcome to Chess Insight! In today's video, we're going to break down one of the most solid chess openings you can play when you're on the black side. This opening works not only against pawn e4, but also against pawn d4, knight f3, and even pawn c4. If you often struggle playing as black, you definitely need to give this opening a try. What we're talking about today is the King's Indian defense. Let's start with the first example, when white opens with pawn d4. If white plays d4, we respond with knight to f6, immediately controlling the e4 square. Since that square is now protected by the knight, it becomes harder for white to push their pawn to e4 right away. Typically, white will play c4, preparing knight to c3 on the next move. Why not develop the knight first? Because if the knight goes to c3 before the pawn moves, then the c-pawn becomes blocked and can't be pushed. That's why c4 usually comes first. So after white plays c4, we respond with g6. Then white continues with knight to c3, preparing the central push with e4. We follow up by fianchettoing our dark-squared bishop to g7. After white pushes e4, we respond with d6. This prevents white from pushing e5 too early and also clears space for our knight to jump to d7. Let's say white pushes e5, trying to attack our knight. We can simply capture the pawn. If white recaptures with a pawn, we trade queens, and after white takes back with the knight, we place our knight on d7, targeting the pawn on e5 together with our bishop. But in practice, the early e5 push is rare. More commonly, white plays knight to f3. If that happens, we can castle kingside. What you're seeing here is one of the most common setups in the King's Indian defense. This opening is a personal favorite of Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura and many other top grandmasters. White often follows up with bishop to e2, preparing to castle. We then bring our bishop out to g4. Usually white castles kingside next. After they castle, we continue with knight to d7, opening up our bishop's line of sight to d4. Here comes a trap that white might try, pushing h3. The idea is, if our bishop retreats to e6, then after d5, our light-squared bishop gets trapped. That's why, after h3, we immediately capture the knight on f3. White will recapture with the bishop, and we continue developing with knight to c6, adding pressure to the d4 pawn. White can protect that pawn with a bishop, or they might choose to push it forward to d5. If white pushes the pawn, we jump in with our knight to d4. This is a fantastic outpost, controlling the light squares in white's territory. Now, if white tries to chase our knight away with bishop to e3, we push our pawn to e5, reinforcing our strong knight. If white captures our pawn en passant, we respond with knight takes bishop. After white recaptures with the queen, we grab the pawn on e6, attacking the queen and activating our rook. If instead white captures our knight with their bishop, we recapture with a pawn, hitting the knight. Let's say the knight moves to e2, targeting our pawn. We push d3, attacking the knight again. White will likely recapture that pawn with their queen. If so, we grab the pawn on b2, threatening the rook at the same time. White might try to defend with rook to b1, attacking our bishop and targeting b7. We simply retreat the bishop back to g7. And if white dares to capture the pawn on b7, we jump in with our knight to c5, forking the queen and the rook. Now let's backtrack. What if instead of pushing d5, white just defends the d4 pawn with their bishop? In that case, we respond with e5, once again targeting the center. If white pushes d5, we jump in with the knight to d4, same as before. And if white captures on e5, we recapture with the pawn. No matter what white plays next, even a move like a4, we continue with knight to d4. This knight becomes a monster, pressuring the bishop and controlling key light squares in white's position. If the bishop captures the knight, we take back with the pawn, attacking white's knight. Say the knight goes to e2, aiming for our pawn. We reposition our knight to e5, inviting white to take the pawn. But if white gets greedy and takes with the knight, we play a surprise move, queen takes knight. After queen takes queen, we play knight takes bishop with check, and our bishop attacks the queen. We'll soon win the queen on d4, giving us a clear material edge. Let's back up again and now look at what happens when white starts with 1 point e4. This time we respond with g6, getting ready to fianchetto our bishop. If we play knight to f6 too early, white will push e5 and kick our knight away. That's why g6 comes first. White will likely follow up with d4, and we place our bishop on g7. White might develop either knight to f3 or knight to c3. At this point, if we play d6, the game can transpose into the Perk defense. But since today's focus is the king's Indian defense, we'll stick to the c4 lines. If white plays c4, we respond with d6. This allows us to develop our knight to f6 safely. After either knight develops for white, we go ahead and bring out our knight to f6. That's followed by kingside castling. Earlier, we looked at the line where white plays bishop to e2, and we play bishop to g4. Now, what if white plays h3 first to prevent bishop to g4? No problem. We push e5, again attacking the center. White has two main options: capture the pawn or push their own to d5. If they capture, we take back. At a glance, this e5 pawn looks like it can be taken easily with the knight. And if white does that, we trade queens. After the queen trade, we slide our rook over to e8, targeting the knight. White retreats their knight to f3, and we grab the pawn on e4, threatening a discovery. So white must play bishop to e2 or e3 to stop us. Notice how black has developed an active knight, bishop, and rook, while white's pieces are stuck defending. The king is still in the center, which could become a big problem. Now what if white plays bishop to g5, pinning our knight to the queen? We simply play knight to a6, defending the c7 pawn. This knight will soon maneuver to c5 and add pressure to e4. Often, white will initiate a queen trade. After we recapture with the rook, white jumps in with knight to d5, targeting our knight. No worries, we play rook to d6 to protect it. If bishop captures knight, we take back with our bishop. Knight takes bishop, and we recapture with the rook. This leads to a balanced position where both sides still have chances to win. Now let's rewind again. After we push e5, what if white doesn't capture but instead pushes d5? We respond with a5, preparing to bring our knight to a6. Usually white will develop their dark squared bishop to e3, and we continue with knight to a6. At this point, white may try moves like a3 or even g4, we'll cover both. Let's say white plays a 3. Now we go for a shocking grandmaster-style sacrifice. Knight takes pawn. White never sees it coming. After knight takes knight, we push f5, attacking the knight. It runs back to c3, and now we strike with e4, attacking f3. If the knight retreats to d2, we trap the bishop after f4. So white's best option is knight to h2. We keep pushing pawns. Now f3 is under fire. If bishop goes to d4 to trade, we take it without hesitation. After queen recaptures, we jump to c5, eyeing a fork on b3. White plays rook to b1 to stop us. Then we place our queen on h4, pressuring the f2 pawn. White's best response here is b4. We capture, they recapture, threatening our knight. We ignore it and push e3. If white gets greedy and captures the knight, it's a huge mistake. First, we capture with the f-pawn, attacking the queen. If the queen runs to d1, we checkmate with queen takes f2. If the queen runs to d3, we play bishop to f5, forking the queen and the rook. So white's best bet is g3, attacking our queen. If they do, we take on f2 with check. King runs to d2 and we take the queen. White recaptures with the pawn, but we don't rush to take the knight. Instead, we play bishop to f5, hitting the rook on b1. If white grabs our b7 pawn with the rook, we capture the knight with check. Then we place our bishop on e4, threatening the rook on h1. That rook is now pinned, and white is forced to play knight to f3 to block. We then bring our rook to a1, pinning the bishop to the rook. Black has a crushing attack, plus two powerful passed pawns ready to promote. Clearly, black is in a dominant position here. Let's backtrack one last time. After knight to a6, the most popular move from white is g4, trying to tear open the king side. No need to panic, we push h5, offering a pawn trade. If white captures, we take back with the knight. This is not a real threat to black's position. If white instead pushes the pawn forward to attack our knight, we calmly retreat to d7. Ironically, this creates a very safe shelter for our king behind the pawns. That knight can later jump to c5, pressuring the e4 pawn. If white continues with queen to d2, we go knight to c5. white castles long, and we play bishop to d7. From here, whether you win or lose depends entirely on your creativity and skill. If you coordinate your attack well, you'll likely come out on top. So I highly recommend practicing this opening regularly. The King's Indian defense is a powerful and flexible weapon you can use against any opponent, even a grandmaster. Alright, chess lovers, that wraps up our breakdown of the King's Indian defense. Hopefully this video adds something new to your game. What other openings should we explore next? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video.